Hello, good evening. Welcome back to the Tunnel Podcast, the 34th instalment of the greatest podcast in the world. Yes, delighted to say I'm joined by Tom Goff as always. Tom, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, other than the West Brom FA Cup result, I've had a good weekend. So yeah, thanks for asking, bud.
It started so well and then just fell away. We'll come to that, I'm sure, in due course. Listen, we've got a guest tonight. Delighted to say we're joined by Chad Jarvis from the Red Half of Sheffield podcast. Chad, thanks for coming along, mate. How are you doing?
Not bad. Thanks for having me back on for a second time. I'm hoping this time to drive even more clicks and traffic to the Tunnel podcast. I really enjoy it, and I had fun last time I was on. So thanks for bringing me back. And I will say, Tom, at least you didn't lose to a team in the same division on a Thursday night in the middle of the week in the FA Cup, if that makes sense.
A fixture move for Welsh television, but again, we'll come on to that. Plenty to talk about tonight. Listen, we are going to spend a bit of time focusing on Sheff Utd because we've got a guest from obviously Sheff Utd podcast, and then we'll move on to some other more general points as the podcast goes on. Chad, if we can I go back a few weeks, if you don't mind? You know, the takeover is complete. COH Sports got 100% of the club now. Probably announced just before Christmas, 23rd of December. You know, just your initial thoughts on the takeover and you know the fact that it's now over the line.
Hey, well, it's good because it's been a saga that's been taking the better part of all of last season when we were absolute garbage in the Premier League, and then the better part of the season before when we were in the Championship. You know, the rumblings of the Prince wanting to sell the club were like everybody and anybody in England's up for sale, it seems like these days. And, you know, the Prince did us well for his tenure. I mean, bringing us through the doldrums of when you didn't think we were going to see the light, and then bringing us all the way up to the Premier League and being in the Premier League twice. And, you know, 2 promotions to the Premier League. That's pretty big. I mean, competitive in the Championship. And then, so when he put it up for sale, I think it was one of those deals where he's gone long enough, and I think he's done enough. Not to mention, he seemed to, the longer it went on, he seemed to be more broke and more broke and more broke. So eventually, you know, the rumblings of an American consortium, we all love those words. Consortium's only thrown around in football terms. And so, you know, it was like the story that never ended. Something would break. Oh, it's going to be certain in the next 24, 48 hours. It's going to be done. This is going to be great for Sheffield United. They're finally going to have it. And that was in the back of, like, in the summer. And then the summer comes and goes and nothing happens. And then the beginning of the season, it's going to be done within 72 hours. And that was in August. And then, another in September and October. And then November comes around and you're like, well, we haven't heard anything for like 2 months. I guess it must be dead deal. And then in December, you know, you make it to like the middle part of December, and then it starts hotting up and you start hearing all of this, so on and so forth. You know, this time it's for real. It's going to happen, so on and so forth. And then, you know, a little bit of a early Christmas present. I kind of had a feeling that something was in the works, because a lot of interest in the club reached out to me of doing a COSM. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that over in England. It's a deal where you show up to like a movie theater and it broadcasts the game, and it's like you're at Bramall Lane, and it was against Burnley on Boxing Day. And so you kind of had an inkling, like, you know, these Americans, you know, they're trying to push maybe being in the door a little bit early. And then you hear a couple days before Christmas and they're like, okay, this is a done deal. We're going to announce the consortium. They were there. They had been there, I want to say in the beginning of December. I think they were at one of the games. I forget who it was against. I think it might have been, no, I don't know if it was against West Brom. No, it was somebody end of November, early December. And you're like, okay, it's going to get done. And then they announce it right before Christmas. And you're like, okay, now that's done. We've got like 10 days until the transfer window open. I hope the purse strings are looser. Are they going to Are they going to, splash the cash in January, or are they going to hold it until summer and, see where we end up this season? So it's anticipation, and we're time of recording, we're 12 days into the month of January and 0 signings through the door. So that should tell probably everybody in Sheff United land that we're going to be a little bit more conservative through January. I think they're going to let the consortium get their numbers and money and budgets all sorted. And then if we don't go up, give it a right good go next year and really throw some cash at it to go up. But it certainly is exciting because, I'm an American, and I know I am infringing on your game, and our country's killing your guys' game. And I with the deepest, sincerest apologies, do apologize for that. But it's weird to see such a small club, like in terms of, if I'm thinking in the Premier League, would be a small club. We're a bigger club in the Championship, but to get taken over by Americans when 10 years ago you would have been like, no way in hell. Nobody even can spell Sheffield United, let alone point it out on a map. Nobody over here in America could buy them. It's crazy to see that somebody from my country is investing in a team that I support over in a different country. It's really weird, man. It's really weird.
Tom, I'll come to you because, Chad hits on many great points. I'm going to come back around to a couple of them, but just to read some, some early statements from the new consortium. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's headed up by two really important businessmen. They're going to be co-chairmen, Stephen Rosen and Helmi El-Tuki. Hope I've not butchered his name there. And they kind of sort of said, look, like all Blaze fans, we want to see the club competing in the top flight of English football consistently, not just on a one-off basis. I've been encouraged by the strong start to this season. Team have been performing strongly, and we're committed to supporting the management team to continue this progress. We want to take the chance to assure the supporters that we understand the huge responsibility that comes with owning Sheffield United. The club is rooted into the fabric of this great city, and our fans are the beating heart who back the team no matter what. Our fans will be at the heart of what CUH stands for, and we're deeply committed to ensuring Sheffield United is accessible and affordable for our supporters. Now, it's the last line for me, accessible and affordable. As Chad says there about American owners, we've seen American owners come in. Let's use Liverpool, Manchester United as an example. They pump up the ticket prices for the visiting fan on a match day. They try to sort of maybe exploit the tourist market and get fans in on a one-day trip that's just going to spend money on shirts and merchandising and obviously a higher ticket price. So how important is that? Sheffield's a really working-class city that they're committed to making it all about the fans that are there already.
Yeah, that's it. I think you make a good point in that there's obviously the owners of Man United and Liverpool have been there for some time, but there definitely seems to be a kind of increase in Americans wanting to get involved in English football, not just in the top division, but in the Championship as well. So obviously, of late, Birmingham City is probably the most high-profile one, but then ourselves as well. The consortium that took over West Brom is head by an American businessman from Miami, I believe. So. There's from somewhere or another, I don't know where exactly, but there's definitely been this influx of American owners coming into the game. Now, I think so far, from a West Brom perspective, they've been absolutely brilliant. I think a lot of Birmingham City fans would say the same as well, since they've come in. They do seem to have realised that, it's not all, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, but kind of bright lights, of the Premier League and the high profile and the Sky Sports and that that as you kind of come down the pyramid of the Football League a bit, it's, the clubs, it's different. It's different ultimately, isn't it? And Wrexham is another great example. I think, as much stick that they get, Ryan Reynolds and the other guy,
Rob McElhaney.
Yeah. I think they have done a fantastic job in kind of coming through the door and then embracing everything about the club, learning as quickly as possible what it takes, what it means, to be a Wrexham fan, how the community's involved and getting to know as many people as possible. And, I think, like I said, there's a few examples of where these Americans have taken over of late teams, outside the Premier League, and they've made, a really good start to life, as owners and saying the right things and also doing the right things. So look, the proof will be in the pudding. Time will tell, but I think if from what you've just said, they're saying all the right things, early doors, which is obviously promising, what Sheffield United fans want to hear. Like I said, the proof will be in the pudding with time, won't it? But if they were to kind of follow down the same route as, like I said, Wrexham, Birmingham City, ourselves, there's probably some other examples out there. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. But if they kind of follow down the same route as them, then I think it'll put them in good stead. But like Chad, the point Chad made, they've kind of, I don't think there's any kind of easy time to kind of take over a football club and, pick things up and get going. But I think they have obviously got a very difficult, challenging scenario because of, the fact that they've taken over halfway through the season. Like Chad said, we're in January, the transfer window's open, for a few more weeks. And as we will lead on to, Sheffield United, it's absolutely vital that they, have a successful transfer window because of the issues that they've got with injuries and players kind of going back to parents' clubs, etc., etc. So, all eyes are on them. The Sheffield United fans, like, this is the first, the big challenge for them is to try and, make some good additions in this window and keep this automatic promotion run going.
Chad, that's a good point that Tom makes. Chris Wilder spoke just before the Burnley game and said, look, we've got plans to meet on the 27th, the day after the two new owners were going to be at the Burnley game. Like you said, really highlighted, there's now clarity within the football club. We know who's in charge now and know where we want to go, which is great. He said, but we just need to keep on focusing on the main event, which is winning football matches. And when he says, met him on the 27th, I'll show him around the training ground. We're going to sit down and talk about the January window because that's the biggest target we have to nail. Now, I was lucky enough to be at Bramall Lane for the visit of West Bromwich Albion. I felt, looking at Sheffield United, they looked kind of tired. And I don't mean that physically. I meant just you maybe mentally drained, a lot of strain on the squad, as Tom says there, about injuries and stuff. So how important is this in terms of a balancing act? Because they've got a really big chance to make a great first impression, or it could be a really bad first impression if things don't go right in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, I've been watching them week in and week out. And then when we come to the festive fixture period, and when you play almost seemingly every 3 days, they looked beat like a drum. They looked dead tired. They looked like heavy legs, a lot of cramping, especially come the last game of that period against Watford. It's just we don't have any depth. And I spoke to this when Tom had me on before the season, and that's what I said, and that's what drove up so many likes. And this guy, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And we're to that period where if we don't pick up anybody in the transfer window, and you're going to roll through with this, Vinicius Souza, he had a hamstring. Ali Arblaster, he's out for the year. Harry Suter's gone back to Leicester. He's done his Achilles. The injuries are starting to pile up. And if you happen to look at our bench the last probably 3 games, I don't think anybody on that bench is older than 21 years old. Excuse me. Besides Adam Davies, he's like 38 years old, but he's the backup goalkeeper. But other than that, any outfield player isn't over the age of probably 21, 22 years old. So they're having to use players in the youth system to be on the bench to then sub when in the latter stages of a game, because our starting 11 is the best we have. And if we drop a few off, then those players that should probably be on loan at a League One, League Two, even National League side. No, they don't have any chance to grow their game and their experience in the game because they have to be sat on a bench because there's not enough players at Sheff United. And so that's why I'm hoping these owners Wilder said to these owners and said, hey, can you look at the bench against Watford? I don't want, no offense, but I don't want any of those players in the starting 11 because then our side is going to start to drop down the rungs of the league. And, if you go in from being in a challenging for promotion position to just outside the, now granted it is a pretty far drop to outside the playoffs, but Wilder has to go to the owners and say, we have something special here. We can get to the promised land. Even though I hate that league, we can get back there, but you're going to have to invest in the side.
Tom, it's a point well made that it's a 4-horse race for 2 spots effectively. Sheffield United, should I say, just sitting in 3rd place at the moment. I don't want to make excuses for Chris Wilder, and I'm sure he wouldn't either. But the way the injuries have fell maybe coincided with this drop off in terms of the festive period. There's a lot of fixtures coming. You really need to have the maximum squad to try and get maximum output. Tie into that, the new owners and Chris Wilder have openly said, this is an evolution, not a revolution. So it's like Chad says, there's not going to be millions and millions of pounds chucked at it. So, we spoke on here a couple of months ago when Sheffield United were flying high on a really good run, said how great the squad was. But if they get 1 or 2 key players out, which has happened, Sousa, Arblaster, even Kiefer Moore the last few weeks being injured, Tyrese Campbell, who I think started hitting a wee bit of a purple patch and then he got injured as well. They have been really unfortunate.
Yeah, they've arguably been the unluckiest team in the division in regards to the amount of injuries they've had so far and to really important players. But I think testament to Wilder that he's still been able to kind of keep them up there in the mix. And look, I was looking, just doing a bit of a recap of the games they played over Christmas, and I know they lost a couple of matches. They obviously lost to Burnley and Sunderland, which obviously stung a bit because they're obviously the 2 teams in that 4 who are chasing automatic promotion with them. The Burnley game, I think they were quite poor, but they obviously lost by the 1 goal against Sunderland. And then I was looking at some of the other teams have played. They obviously got a win against Watford away, which was a great result, all things considered. So I think they've done really well to kind of keep in there, given the circumstances. He's done a great job in keeping them right in the mix, with the hope that the new owners kind of pull their wallet out and make a few additions for him. So we've had our chats about him on here. He's obviously quite a decisive character, a divisive character. Chris Wilder. But I do think a lot of credit has to go to him for the fact that they are still right in the mix after having lost a couple of games to promotion rivals. They've had a really tricky spell. Like I said, they've played Burnley, they've played Sunderland, they've played Watford, they've played ourselves. It's been a really tough run. So I think he's done wonders. But it's we just kind of keep repeating ourselves, aren't we? That it's just going to be absolutely vital to see what they do in the next 2 weeks. Look, I think with financial fair play now and everything, I think it is going to be difficult. I still am a bit kind of baffled as to how Birmingham City spent so much cash in the summer transfer window, because no one else has really seemingly been able to do the same. And I kind of doubt Sheffield United will. And, if the rumours, so far are to be believed, they're kind of going for maybe some loan additions, a couple of guys maybe out of contract at the end of the season. Kind of ties into what you said at the start, that they are going to have to be sensible. Like Chad was saying, Sheffield United fans, shouldn't be expecting them to just start throwing millions and millions and millions about. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. The Sheffield United fans are obviously on the edge of their seats because, like Chad said, I had a couple of chats with him over the Christmas period, because obviously they played West Brom seemingly within a couple of weeks of each other. But, he kind of predicted this to happen and said, how important it was going to be January for the remainder of the season as to whether they stay up there and continue that 4-horse race, or, they tail off a little bit and they get more embroiled in that playoff chasing mix.
Chad, is that a concern for you? Something that Tom highlights there. You've lost to Leeds, you've lost to Burnley, you've lost to Sunderland. These are your direct opponents as such for the automatic spots.
Yeah, like everyone. Well, I'm not like everybody in Sheff United land. I don't wear red and white tinted glasses. I watch the division as a whole, and it just simply doesn't work. When you lose to Leeds, you lose to Burnley. I'd even chuck Middlesbrough in there. I mean, we split the season with Sunderland, and so if you lose to Leeds, Burnley, and Borough, and don't even really have a sniff of the opposition goal, I think that's more concerning than, where everybody's, from the outside and, oh man, they're third, they're doing great. Now, granted, and I'd even throw Tom's West Brom in there. I thought West Brom was a good side, both games. I mean, both entertaining matches. But the whole thing is this division has gotten so much weaker, even in the 2 years since we've been in here. I think that even if they lose to Burnley and Leeds on the back half and lose to them twice, I still think if you don't drop any points against the teams you're not supposed to, I think you're still going to be all right. But that just leads into, you dropped what? 6? You would have dropped 6 points to both teams, 12 points. I don't know. It's not a good look. I really hope in the reverse fixtures against Leeds and Burnley, we get at least something out of one of those games. Because, to be frank, I don't think they're going to go up automatically, and that's just me. Now that's gonna rub people the wrong way. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He's so far away from it. But unless they improve in the transfer window and improve the side, and if we hit both Burnley and Leeds and our teams are healthy, then we might be able to challenge them on our day. But until we face either of them, and obviously both teams won't be at 100% health because it's a long, arduous season, we might go and lose. So it's tough to say, but it certainly doesn't look good when you look at our results and you say a couple of losses and they're both to the teams that are above us in the league. And then we've beat kind of everybody in underneath us.
Just to stick with you then, Chad, because 3 weeks ago, Chris Wilder said we need 2 or 3 in. Do you think it's more like 4 or 5 at the moment? How many bodies do you think? Because he said it's quality over quantity and it's experience over inexperience at this point. Now, it's a really tricky window. As Tom says, you are probably looking at loans unless you can, dig someone out of a club. But it's difficult in January, especially if they're playing well. They're not going to sell at a cheap price. So do you think it's going to be 2 or 3, or do you think you need maybe 4 or 5?
I think it's more of 5 or 6,
right?
Because, and I get the whole quality over quantity. So obviously, it's not going to be that many people. They're not going to bring that many players in. And obviously, as you said, Robert, they're going to be mostly loans. Now, Suter going back to Leicester, that probably voids his loan. So we'll get, BBD is the one from Southampton, Ben Brereton Diaz. He's the one rumored to come in to bolster our striking attack. I still think you need a big, thick central defender, which Harry Suter was, to pair him again beside Anel. I still think you need, if you're bringing in BBD in attack, I think you need one more striker, quality striker. Louis Barry, pick up the phone. I'm more than happy to call you. And then I think you need one or two in midfield or out on the wings, just a bit of if it's not working for us through like 65, 70 minutes, we can go to the bench and have an impact. Because in so many of these games I've looked at, yes, starting 11, we might shade the starting 11, but then when you look at the bench, it virtually Burnley, Leeds, Middlesbrough, Sunderland, you look at the bench and you're like, bang, they shade the bench because they have actually quality players on the bench where we have kids. And it's like you have kids in Rhian Brewster, and that doesn't fill me with a load of confidence. So when that sets up that, when I say 5 or 6, maybe 2 or 3 to come in and 2 or 3 to bolster the bench would make sense to me. And I understand if you get a couple on freeze, a couple on loans. We all know that the January transfer market is an overinflated market. Everybody charges out the backside for any sort of player. So just it makes it 10 times harder to bring players in. So a long-winded answer, but I would like 6, but 3 at the minimum to bring in to bolster our starting 11.
Tom, I'll come to you then. Obviously, Chad's threw out some names there. Just one I want to start with was Tom Cannon. He's been linked with Sheff United, but I think Leicester have got until Wednesday to recall him. And if they don't, then he'll be staying at Stoke for the remainder. It would need to be done rather quickly if that was going to be the case. I hear that Sheff United were offering a rumoured loan with an option to buy at the end of the season. Could Leicester be tempted with that?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think he's had quite a successful season. I know Stoke have struggled, but he's it took him a little bit to get going, but he's been scoring goals quite frequently for Stoke. He's definitely caught the eye, and I've read the same that not only Sheffield United, but a few other the Championship teams who are up the top there, Sunderland, Burnley, ourselves have been linked to him as well. I think we've had this conversation before. I'd find it a bit strange. I know obviously the teams I've just listed are having a better season than Stoke in terms of their position in the table, but he's been doing well at Stoke. He's been scoring goals. He's obviously settled in there now. I'd find it a bit strange for him to recall him and then send him back out. I think the only way they would do that is like you've just said, that there'd be some permanent deal agreed there, that they get offered a decent sum to sell him. But then, he's still quite a young lad. I don't know if, obviously Leicester, Ruud van Nistelrooy, what their thoughts are, whether they rate him or not, they see him having a chance. I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, because, I think the only way that, with Leicester, I think the only sense to send him out to someone else would be if they agree a permanent deal with someone. I just think it makes sense to keep him at Stoke, for the remainder of the season on loan. But I think in terms of, the caliber of player, I think that's what Sheffield United need to be going for is some of the better players in this division, some of the guys who have had a good start, a good first half of the season, who could, like Chad says, come in straight away, bringing players in from the continent, or even kind of young lads from the Premier League. I think there's always risk involved there, isn't it, as to whether they adapt and settle quickly to Championship football. So, I think, like you said, Berrett Diaz, he's obviously got a lot of Championship experience, scored a hell of a lot of goals at that level. Tom Cannon, he's doing it right now. I think I saw as well that Lewis Koumas, same situation as Tom Cannon, obviously at Stoke. Liverpool are maybe thinking of bringing him back, sending him out to a team maybe doing a bit better towards the top end of the division. I think, it makes sense that, these are the players they're getting linked to, because I think that's what they need. What Chad said, they need guys who can come in straight away, you know, and do a job straight away instead of guys who might need a bit of time to settle, like you said, kind of filler on the bench. That's not what they need.
Tom, I'll stick with you just quickly on this, because from what you're saying there, you would maybe leaning towards realistically it's going to be Ben Brereton Diaz then.
I think they've got better chance of getting Diaz than Tom Cannon. I think obviously Diaz.
If you were Chris Wilder, who would you want? Who would you be telling the owners go get him over him?
Louis Barry.
It's because Louis Barry was linked with Derby, wasn't he? Is that
I listened to Paul Warren speaking before, you know, obviously I think they play the FA Cup game tomorrow night, do they, or is it later tonight? It's tomorrow night. And he was saying, look, if you could go through social media and find Louis Barry linked to every club in the Championship at the minute, so it won't be done until it's done.
I think first and foremost, if like Chad might disagree, but I think like Louis Barry's definitely an option. You know, they're obviously looking to send him out to a Championship team doing well. But I'd like, you know, a guy who you know full well can come straight in and start scoring goals for you in the Championship. And I think, you know, I'd probably sway more towards Brereton Diaz just because he obviously had a spell with Sheffield United. He's scored more goals at this level than Tom Cannon. You know, he's struggling a bit at Southampton. You know, he's going to be really eager to kind of start getting some games under his belt and start proving his worth. So, you know, I can see that happening. Like, I know he's been linked with everyone up the top there, but I think from what I've read, he maybe favours a move to Sheffield United above everyone else because of his, you know, spell there previously. So that'd be the one for me. But look, I think if it ends up being Tom Cannon instead of Brereton Diaz, I think again they've still got another good striker there who will only, you know, help the team.
Yeah, listen, I read comments from Brereton Diaz that his wife's just had a young baby and he doesn't want to be uprooting them, so he either stays at Southampton or returns to Bramall Lane. So that one does look like it may have legs. Chad, what is it about Louis Barry then that you like, that think he could add and maybe sort of take you on to the next level?
Like, obviously, like Tom said, you know, there's no for certainty he'd come in. I would like him to add striker depth, and you saw how his goal record at Stockport. I follow Stockport County pretty closely, and I think he's a striker that's going to be able to do it not only at this level, but in a few years, maybe at the top level, you know. And it would certainly be good to see him in the red and white and see what he could do. You know, maybe if you know, he was in the side and we got promoted, maybe we could get him back next year and maybe watch him struggle with playing against Premier League sides. But you know, I don't know. He scores goals, and I like scoring goals. And players that score goals make me excited. And we haven't, you know, as I mentioned, it's been a revolving door. And you even said it, Robert. Kiefer Moore, as I call him, Big Kiefer. He's been worthless. Tyrese Campbell, he hit his purple patch and then pulled up with a hamstring. Rhian Brewster, he's been worthless. And, you know, so it's kind of a mishmash. And obviously, I take BBD back because he was in the side last year on loan, and he played when he came in the back half of last year. He played better. He scored goals. He at least gave us a halfway chance of being in the games. Yes, it was in the Premier League. Yes, it was his first time. But we've seen what he's been able to do in this league prior, as Tom mentioned. You know, so if he's not getting any playing time at Southampton, it'd be the smartest thing to do. And to back up Tom's point, yeah, I read that today or yesterday that he fancies only a move to Sheff United because his wife's just had a baby or about to have a baby. And he does, it's either Southampton and he won't play or Sheffield United, and he'll probably start every damn game until he gets hurt.
listen, loads of names linked. Obviously, Grant Hanley was linked as well. You said you need another centre half, so we'll maybe not delve into that one. Let's move on then to Thursday night, because we're going to move on to a bit more FA Cup chat. Look, Thursday night was not a popular night for anyone for an FA Cup tie. 2 Championship sides. Really cold night here in South Yorkshire, and 6,000 people turned up. Loads of changes for Chris Wilder. He had to hand some people some opportunity. Ryan Oney, who's Scottish, I was looking forward to seeing, but he had a bit of a difficult evening. Look, are you disappointed about the Cup first and foremost, or was it something you could see coming from Wilder?
No, this is pretty much to be expected. Yeah, it was Cardiff. Did they really give it their all? No. As you mentioned, much needed rest for some players. I'm glad to be out of the Cup. It's cool to play. It's cool in these early rounds, especially the 3rd and 4th round, where you have the chance of getting drawn against a League 2, a League 1, even if there's still a National League side in here. It's cool to get drawn against those and go away from home and play those. And those grounds that don't get the light shined upon them a lot, which I think needs to happen more in the game, but unfortunately it's not. But to get drawn against Cardiff at home, as you mentioned, on a Thursday night, it kind of felt like, here you go. We're just gonna give the crappiest fixtures of the round. We'll throw them out on Thursday night, and then everybody will do whatever they want, with the rest of the fixtures, the rest of the weekend. But I liked how we went into it, played the kids, gave a bunch of rest, got ready for the inevitable run in 20 games left in the season. You still got a couple international breaks. Obviously, any time when the 4th round, I think the 5th round is the midweek fixtures. The 4th round we'll get a week rest, because we won't play that next weekend. So, I mean, it sets up for us now. The only thing that would have been negative is if you played one more game in the month of January in the 4th round of the FA Cup. It gives you a chance to get your new signees into the side instead of just throwing them out there into the league. So that's going to hamper us a little bit. And so you might see our form drop a little bit if we do bring anybody in through the door. But long answer to a probably short question is, yeah, I'm glad to be out of the Cup.
Tom, Chad, that attitude of glad to be out of the Cup. Chris Wilder had sort of been prodded in his post-match. He said, were you not tempted to play O'Hare? Were you not tempted to play Hamer? And he said, of course I was, but look, we've got, if I lose them, we've got these games coming. If we don't bring anyone in, it's really difficult. That the league obviously takes priority. You look at the 2 all-championship ties of the weekend, Sunderland, Stoke, Sheff United and Cardiff. They had really low attendances for obviously the capacity of these grounds, particularly in Sheffield on Thursday night, which, that game was a 7 o'clock kickoff, so the BBC didn't have to move Traitors, believe it or not. I don't know if you've heard what Traitor is, Chad, but it's a really popular show here in the UK. I don't know if you have it over there. Yeah. Which I just found that another just disrespect to the in quote greatest cup competition in the world, Tom.
Yeah, I just think I think it's been a bit of an eye opener this last weekend. In terms of just the damage that has been done to this competition. West Brom are in a very similar position to Sheffield United. Look, I know we were playing Bournemouth away. Our expectation, wasn't great because of how good a season Bournemouth are having, but we made, I think, 7 changes, something like that, from the previous league fixture. And I think I don't blame these managers for making all these changes and quote unquote making, not taking it seriously. I think the circumstances now led to this. The decisions that have been made up until this point has now led to, especially championship teams, because I think that the difficulty championship teams have, especially teams that are fighting for promotion, is just obviously so much on, so much at stake. You've just had the busiest period of the calendar, December, fixtures day in, day out. And then, you get the FA Cup thrown into the mix. And, 9 times out of 10, You got tired legs. You got players, picked up injuries and knocks. And then, you're expected to play your strongest 11 in the FA Cup. Well, it's okay for teams in the Premier League because they've got these massive squads. They've got quality throughout. They've got quality throughout the bench. But even the teams at the top of the Championship just haven't got that depth. So I can understand 100% why the decision is made. But the thing that just frustrates me is just all these decisions that they make and just continue to favour the teams in the Premier League when, the crazy thing for me is it should be the opposite. It should be the opposite. The decisions that they make should be favouring the teams lower down the pyramid, whatever that may be. They should be favouring those teams to, like you said, just kind of sustain the, what's the word? The tradition of the cup. The teams in the Premier League have got, the vast majority of them anyway, have got all the money in the world. They've got talented squads. They've got, talented, benches where they can afford to mix things up. The crazy decision to cancel ties, cancel what's it called? Replays. Sorry, yeah, my bad. Replays, yeah. Decision. They will argue that, well, that's going to benefit teams like, West Brom and Sheffield United. Okay, it probably will to a degree, but it's benefiting the teams in the Premier League more than it is us. And if I genuinely believe, if the replays were still there, and there was still, the replays ultimately give those teams lower down the pyramid a better chance of causing an upset. It's not all just about money. I do believe that it gives them a better chance of causing an upset as well. Maybe then teams in the Championship would think they've got more of a chance, later on in the competition of coming up against, maybe a team lower down the pyramid, it just being a completely, open competition where it's no surprise that as each, these decisions are being made and each year passes that, like Chad pointed out, all the Premiership teams are just going through, pretty much, there's hardly any shocks anymore, is there? There always used to be shocks. There'd always be a handful of shocks every year in the FA Cup. It's just becoming more and more less frequent. And the reason is because all these decisions are being made to favour the teams at the top. It's as simple as that.
Chad, I can see you like a coiled spring there, mate. Join in. Come on, I can see you.
Oh, this is my soapbox. This is my soapbox. So everybody listen to this because this is from an American standpoint, which you won't probably get this with too many Americans over here. And now I am a football fan, and I love. My passion is the EFL. All 72 teams in that division, even Sheff Wednesday, and people are like, "Oh, he doesn't respect the rivalry." I care about all 72 teams. The top 20 teams that are up there now, they can go piss off. This, as Tom said, the Premier League, 17 out of the 20 teams advanced in this competition. Okay, Plymouth lost to Brentford, and 3, 4, 5 years ago, that would have been a League One versus Championship fixture. So Plymouth knocked Brentford out, and then the other two teams that were knocked out were teams that lost in all Premier League fixtures. The Premier League hasn't played since right around New Year's Day. I think they didn't play last weekend. They had an open weekend because they have their so-called, festive period. Well, the Championship had to play last weekend, and let alone did Sheffield United have to turn around and play. They played Saturday, and then they had to play Thursday. Now, woe is me. We're in the Championship. We're used to playing every 3 days. But in a cup competition, if you want to keep the cup competition there, and as Tom mentioned, no shocks this weekend. What was the biggest shock? Exeter City beating Oxford, Plymouth beating Brentford, bottom of the Championship beating a solidified Premier League team. In like Tom said, no replays. We don't get any. Tamworth would have made over £1 million if the game would have finished against Spurs 0-0. Sure, they would have went to Spurs and got battered 3-0 like they did in the last 30 minutes of added time or extra time today, and that's fine and dandy. But it also gives the revenue back to a team in the 5th division of the pyramid that could surely use that money, where Spurs got a bank account that has no bottom. They can just go buy and buy and buy and buy. And I love this competition because I tuned in and you guys are going to think I'm insane, but I watched aside from Thursday and Friday, I watched every single game over this weekend. I have a setup in my man cave here in the States where I'm able to watch all of the games. So I was able to watch all of the games, and it's just, you could see the product is suffering. But when the depth of the top 10 teams in the Premier League is so deep where they can put out 2 starting 11s, and then here comes Salford to play Man City, and oh man, this could be a cup upset. No, 8-0. Leicester 6-2 over QPR. Like this, you're not gonna get these upsets in the cups and the shocks anymore, because it was all Jurgen Klopp. Well, we don't have enough time off. We play in this Champions League and blah 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 blah. They should have shut him up and been like, you're making more money than anybody in the entire EFL, and you're complaining about having to play, let's just say, well, Liverpool played Accrington Stanley this weekend. Oh my God, you got a favorable draw. So this hampers your midweek fixture this week in the Premier League. We are so sorry. Arne Slot. Oh my God, my God, you don't have 40 people you can pull off the bench to fill in for anybody that needs rest, and I think you'll be fine. But that's, again, the whole of this. It's the American market is controlling what goes on over in England. And since the American influence has got over there, I think within the last 4 or 5 years, you have seen this FA Cup. It's almost going the way of the Carabao Cup. I call it the Nobody Cares Cup because nobody ever plays in it. And it's always either Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, or Man United that win it. Well, that's what the FA Cup's turning into. It's turning into a cup where why even go past the 3rd round if you're a championship side? Because what are you going to do? Advance 2 more rounds, or advance like we did a couple years ago when we played Man City in the semifinal? Like, we have no chance. They're going to put out their best starting 11, and we're not going to have any chance. We get battered 3-0. It could have been, and it's what grinds my gears, because slowly but surely it's killing the lower annals of the EFL, and it's not giving a chance for teams like Tranmere Rovers. I'll just throw them out there to just go out there and have, they weren't in the 3rd round, but a team like that to go out and have a day where you can have the big Premier League side come to I remember watching Tranmere Rovers in the 3rd or 4th round of the FA Cup a few years ago, and their pitch is just chopped up like crazy. The Premier League, they got their nice clean boots and their nice clean kits and everything. In 15 minutes in, it looks like they went through a mudslide. That's what it's about, going away to these smaller teams in the leagues and just the fans with their tinfoil trophy. How many times this weekend did you see a tinfoil trophy? I saw it once. It was Tamworth had their tinfoil trophy. You don't see that anymore. You don't see that because the fans are like, this cup is going the same way every other cup is going, and we need to change it. And if you're not going to be able to change it. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And then the chances that you have these shocks that we talk about every year, It's not going to have the years of Wigan beating Man City in the FA Cup and then getting relegated from the Premier League. That's gone. That is gone. If you don't have a Man City, a Man United final, or one of those interchangeable 6 teams, then it doesn't suit the viewership over here in the States, because what drives the market over here is the top 6 teams. Everybody over here walking around the street is a Chelsea, Man U, all those teams, they're all supporters of that. And that's what's killing the game, is the focus over here in the States needs to be more on the other teams. And that's why I'm trying to fly the flag over here. But it's just a moot point, because the EFL and the lower reaches of the EFL, except for Wrexham, don't bring the ratings, don't bring the views, don't bring the support, as, talking about how great Chelsea is and how, oh my God, Man City and all this. That's why you can't help but think the only way that everybody's going to be happy with this cup is just let the rich keep getting richer. And it's going to suck, because it's the oldest cup competition. And after this weekend, I feel like being left short. It's disappointing. It's frustrating, because I wanted to see. That's why I got up at 7 a.m. to watch Tamworth versus Spurs, because I was like, please tell me there's one shock in this round. And I thought it was going to happen. It didn't. But it's just disappointing.
This is the thing that just drives me nuts with that game. Is like you said, look, if you're going to, I don't understand this as well. Again, it's again the advantage to the top teams in that if you were Tamworth, if you had the opportunity to play a one-off game but then go straight into a penalty shootout, again that gives the teams those lesser teams more, again, a bit more of a chance at causing an upset. And this is what some of the pundits were saying. Well, you've taken away their replays, okay? You can see some of the logic in making that decision. I think it completely favors the bigger teams, but the decision's been made. But then at the very least, if you're going to just make it a one-off tie, again, you've got to be looking at some way that you can give some sort of, chance, bit of hope to the lesser teams. Because like today, Tamworth managed to grind out a draw. If that would have gone to a penalty shootout, well, then it's a lottery, isn't it? They've got a chance. But what happens? Tottenham just bought on Son and Kulievski and everyone else. And the Tamworth guys were absolutely dead. They're guys who are going to a blooming builder's yard tomorrow morning, and got to do a 9 to 5. Again, that's just an absolutely ridiculous decision. And just tying into what I was saying, this is why managers in the Championship, they're not taking it as seriously as fans would like, because, they're not stupid. They're seeing the same thing as us. They're seeing that everything is in favor of the bigger team. So why should I risk my team in a promotion chasing season? Why should I risk everything when the odds are just completely stacked against us, more so than they were a few seasons ago before all these changes and decisions started getting made?
In for the life of me, can we please go back to 3 subs? No more of this 5 subs. That's what's killing it too. If we go back to 3 subs, does Big Ange have the chance to bring on Son Kulusevski? Does he change up who he brings on? Because I think that's where going to 5 substitutions has killed it as well, because not only can these big teams put out 5, say it, middle of the road players, but then in worst case, 5, you could put on 5 top quality players in just like what happened. Tamworth don't have the player, nowhere near the players that Spurs have. Spurs were just able to dump everybody on, and look, they finished 3-0. And that's what's so frustrating to me. And everybody's like, oh, they're, again, this is Jurgen Klopp. Oh my God, we have to go to 5 substitutions. We play the Champions League. Dude, I don't even want to hear it, because at the end of the day, you play 38 games. you also make more money than God. Your team has more money than God and can buy anybody. I don't care that you're in. Your choice is to be in the Carabao Cup, the Premier League, the Champions League, the FA Cup. You could easily lay out in all those cups and then just focus on the Premier League if that's what the end goal is. But see, it's all money generated. It's all about this, and that's what grinds my gears, because I feel like when Sheffield United, this is a perfect example, and I know I'm rambling on, and you guys like shut this moron up.
Carry on, mate. Carry on.
When Sheffield United played Wrexham in the FA Cup a couple of years ago, that's the last time I really felt super invested in the cup. We went to the racecourse ground. Everybody thought we were going to walk Wrexham out. As much as I hate Wrexham, I cannot stand them. They pulled it back, and we had a late equalizer and make it 3-3 and get a replay at Bramall Lane. Now our quality, because then they were still in the National League. Our quality then gave us enough to propel us to win in the second leg, and that's usually what happens over two legs. The better opposition, it usually advances. Very seldomly do you have the same that happened in the first leg, and so that is the last time I was like, man, this is truly like the FA Cup, because the entire build-up, both supporters, fan bases were going back. Your team's overrated. Well, you're just in the National League. Well, you're in the champion. So it was like vitriol and hatred, and it's like what the FA Cup was born out of, and it's just all gone away. And you've had the stories like Marine going in a couple of years ago. I think they played Spurs as well, and they were all excited to see Harry Kane show up at their ground. It's just like you're not getting it. It's like, really, Arsenal and Man United had to get drawn together. I mean, I understand it's for, oh my God, the greatness of the FA Cup and all that, but it's so disappointing because we're not going to see any more shocks. And I'll watch the rest of the cup.
I think the point that we can all agree on there is if they make some common ground and scrap. If they're going to scrap the replays, then scrap the extra time as well. Go straight to penalties. It's more of a level playing field, and the likes of Tamworth could have advanced today. Just to listen, I learned loads there, Chad. In the 6 or 7 minutes you were talking, Jurgen Klopp sounds a lot like Groot from Minions, doesn't he? We add another talking point, but we're close to there, so we'll rein it in slightly. Steve Quinn's joined us through the whole hour, and he's been kind of teasing. He said he thinks that the cup's still for lesser teams. Man United beat Arsenal on penalties with a man down. He's also said some uncomplimentary things about Tom that I can't put on the screen. It wouldn't be fair. We'd have to get our lawyers involved. But listen, it's been a decent hour. Very quickly, the weekend's coming up. Obviously, you've got Norwich at home, Tom, Stoke at the Hawthorns for you as well. It's back to business, isn't it? For now that you can draw a line under the cup and start looking at league business again.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Look, I think.
Wait, big question. Will you have a manager for the weekend? Like,
will you?
I'm hoping so, man. It seems like it's getting closer, but yeah, I was like I said last time we chatted, I was hoping that it'd kind of be wrapped up this weekend so that can maybe watch the game and then, they're straight at it next week on the training pitch. But I've got everything crossed that tomorrow morning we'll get an announcement. So he's got the week to work with him. The longer it goes on, the more, the less time he's got with the squad before his first game against Stoke. But yeah, it will be sorted definitely before the next game. But I'm just hoping it's earlier in the week than later, so he can do a bit of work on the training pitch. But look, I'm exactly the same opinion as Chad in that I'm kind of glad we're out, for all the reasons that we've just discussed in the last kind of 15 minutes. Focus on the league, and
it has brought some questions. I saw some reaction from your supporters, not happy with certain performers. Rakic got it, Swift got it in particular from certain quarters. Your supporters were great through the 90 minutes, but some of the players didn't really turn up.
I think I feel a bit so I think it's easy to point the finger, and Chad will be interesting to see what Chad says. But these guys that get brought in, they've hardly played. All they've been limited to is appearances from the bench, and then to throw them in, against a team that's in our case, a team that was doing so well in the Premier League. I think it is a little bit unfair to kind of go too hard at them, but I think some of these guys that were getting the finger pointed at them and some stick are guys that have been kind of doing that for a few weeks now. When they've had an opportunity off the bench 25-30 minutes, they just don't look like they're up for the fight, and I think it's probably this month is a good opportunity for them to move on, not only benefit the club but for themselves as well. So we've got a few players like that, and I think it was the performance at the weekend kind of tied in with that led to some of that. But yeah, it's I think both clubs, both Sheffield United and West Brom, a similar situation in that this I think this month's going to be absolutely vital to the remainder of their season, as to whether they can kind of keep in that promotion mix or they start to drop away. So but yeah, looking forward to getting the league football back on the go this weekend.
And Chad, very quickly, at Norwich, bit up and down. They do have Borja signs though, and he's probably one of the best marksmen in the division.
Yeah, but he's gone for 6 games, so it's a little bit easier.
He's done for the spitting, yeah. Well, who did he spit on a player? What actually happened there? Because me and Tom couldn't figure out who'd spat on. Yeah. Did he spit on an opposition?
I think he spat on somebody in their last league game, is what was what the rumor was, and then he's on the hook for 6 games. So sucks to suck, I guess, or sucks to spit, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you like Sheff United's chances probably without him in the side. It was probably one of our most entertaining games when we played them earlier in the season. So I would expect the same now with us having about a week and a few days off. We're going to probably have a full healthy squad, or as healthy as we possibly can be. So, I mean, you probably got to like Sheff United's chances, especially since Norwich played yesterday and we have 2 more days of rest than they do. So I'll take it. Hopefully we can come out on top and get the 3 points and continue the promotion challenge to inevitably come up short and stay in this league forever.
I love your optimism, Chad. We'll have you back on close at the end of this campaign and see if your prediction is right. Listen, if you've been watching, give us a like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Steve, thanks for joining us. You've been very effective in the comment section tonight. I appreciate that. Actually, Chad, could you understand me? It went okay. You didn't ask me to repeat myself, so nope. There you go. He's got a GCSE in Scottish. He's absolutely fine. Tom, as always, an absolute pleasure. And we'll be back through the week, looking ahead to the weekend's fixtures and a lot more. So thanks very much for your time.